Bang! South Carolina lands five-star offensive lineman Darius Gray. It is the number one ranked interior offensive lineman in the country. And I tell you what, we're going to break it down. We're going to talk about, tell you all the stuff that I know, all the stuff leading up to it. And also why just moments before hitting record, I found out this is a much bigger deal than I even realized. And I'm going to explain why. Locked on Gamecocks starts right now.
You are Locked On Gamecocks, your daily podcast on the South Carolina Gamecocks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, guys? Welcome into Locked On Gamecocks. I'm your host, Chris Marler. Hope everyone's having a fantastic Friday night. You all should be. I know it is 8:40 on the East Coast. I'm recording this right around 7:30. It's been an eventful day with the news that we just found out about an hour ago from five-star offensive lineman Darius Gray. Before we get into that, I want to say thank you to everyone making Locked On Gamecocks your first listen each and every day. Shout out to our everydayers. Remember, we're a free and available podcast wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. First and foremost, I hope the audio is working a lot better. I don't know what happened yesterday. I appreciate you guys letting me know what happened. About 8 minutes in, it sounded like I took a bunch of helium or became the fourth member of the Chipmunks. I don't know, but I'm hoping this is better. We got an actual mic in. We talked to all the people at Locked On, the engineering staff, to hopefully make this work. So I hope we are good there. Before we get into the show, I want to tell you real quick, today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Remember, football season's around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today. Start planning your future bets now. Let's get into the show. We're going to open and talk a lot about the huge news that came down the pipe today about an hour and a half ago. Five-star offensive lineman Darius Gray commits, breaking down how he fits in the class, where this class ranks, some of the intel we found out leading up to this, also now where some intel from the commitment itself, now that he has spoken to the media and where he stood all along. Then we're going to talk about what this means for the program. And I feel like we do this a lot with recruiting, but landing a five-star is a big deal. And I'm going to tell you why in the second part of the show. I'll tease it right now. This is only the 10th five-star that we've landed in program history at South Carolina. Only the 10th, okay? And there's a shocking number that I did not realize until I looked at it that should give everyone a ton of confidence going into not only this year, but especially next year as well. So let's start the show and get into that and break down what happened. So basically, listen, five-star interior offensive lineman Darius Gray from Virginia commits to South Carolina over LSU. He had 5 teams listed. I think it was Auburn, Tennessee, Clemson. I know he had offers from all over the country. Obviously, as a five-star, he clearly would have that. And then you talk about the fact that he basically chose South Carolina over LSU. I told you a couple days ago the idea behind LSU's angle, at least what they were trying to do. I talked to people from behind the scenes there, and one of the angles they were pushing was NIL, and they were trying to do that because they knew they were behind, for one, and two, because they were behind because he wanted to play closer to home. I broke this down for you guys the other day on the show. Hope you guys enjoyed that episode. But Darius Gray's a kid that is 5 hours and 38 minutes in driving away from Columbia, South Carolina. He is, I think it was like 690 or 685 miles further away, or Columbia is. His trip to Columbia or to Baton Rouge would be 685 miles further than it would be to Columbia. That's a lot of flights. That's a lot of hotels. That's a lot of stuff that I'm sure the school's going to pay for, but also living out of a suitcase on the weekends, stuff like that, to go see your kid hopefully play. That's a lot. Whereas he's closer to home. 5.5 hours is not that far of a drive. And that played a big factor. The other thing that we also found out was his relationship with the staff, especially Coach Beamer, ended up being the biggest thing. I texted somebody on the staff the other day and had a conversation with him on Thursday. And I said, what's the latest? I feel like it's been pretty positive. And he, in very few words, I think it was just actually an emoji, let me know that Gray was coming to South Carolina. And so it felt very confident. It was just a matter of waiting until 7 p.m. Eastern for him to announce. But it's also one of those things, too, where we've seen this year especially. We've seen PJ Dean, the guys that you felt really good about, go elsewhere. We've seen people swoop in last minute and go elsewhere because of people throwing a bag in with NIL money and promising a lot more dollar signs and maybe a couple more zeros than maybe you were willing to pay if you were South Carolina. That didn't happen. And I get very excited when I see kids like this in general commit to South Carolina because when they speak about it, and they speak about it so emphatically and enthusiastically. And I feel like I know this would sound like kind of cliche buzzwords, but like that's what Darius Gray did. The quotes that he had about Beamer, the quotes he had about the program, that's the kind of kids you want playing for your university. And of course, it also helps that he's a 5-star and you get excited about 5-stars. Again, I teased it earlier. We're going to talk about more in the second half of the show or second part of the show. This is only the 10th 5-star we've signed in program history. Only the 10th one. Okay. And to land not just a 5-star, but the number 1 player in the country at their position, an incredible job. Just an incredible job. And it's also something else that fits an immediate position of need. It's an immediate position of need because you're talking about a position that has plagued you for the last 2 seasons. No matter who the quarterback is, no matter who the offensive coordinator is, it has plagued you as a team at times and kept you in, I feel like, an arm's length away from winning big games, winning more games, making it to further along in the postseason, better bowls, better, playoff. We're not going to get into that again, but like all of those things were kind of, I feel like, kept at bay at times because of the offensive line. There's a real chance that next year, former 5-star Josiah Thompson lines up at left tackle, and then former 5-star Darius Gray lines up at left guard. And then it turns into who wants to run behind that? Anybody? Now you start being able to recruit better as well because you have an offensive line that people want to run behind, for one. And then 2, it just helps your team. Obviously, you have to develop them. Not all 5-stars work out. I get all of that. But I also go back to the thing I continue to keep like harping on, which is this staff from a development standpoint hasn't had a ton of misses. And what they've been able to do with 3-stars, I have zero reason to think they wouldn't be able to have the same success rate with 5-stars or 4-stars or blue chip players, but 5-stars especially. Now, getting into the Gray part specifically, what he said, what he brings to the table, let's go over that. Gray's quote that one of the things he said to be able to come into a head coaching job and change the program quickly, that's huge. The number one reason, he's talking to Tom Loy, I think on 247 or CBS, why he committed here, Shane Beamer. And the way he represents his players, the way you wouldn't know if you didn't pay attention to football, but he's one of the coolest, most humble guys I've met in my life. Just to have a head coach like that to fight for his players no matter what the situation is, that means everything. I sat here and told you a year ago in the Cheez-It Bowl how frustrated I was with Shane Beamer getting all mad about Brett Bielema and him having to be pulled back and it not resulting in arguments or not resulting in some things on the field. Because if you remember in that game, as he's getting all riled up, you still end up having some issues with like personnel getting on the field. And he was kind of being bested because of how stupid Brett Bielema was being. And he was kind of like baiting him into it. That's how I perceived it as like a 39-year-old watching the game. Like, hey, I need the head coach to be a little bit more level-headed here. I think it's very safe to say that all the players took that in a much different way and in a way that is hugely beneficial to the program and recruiting, which is like that guy is going to fight for his players. He's going to fight for this program. He's going to fight for that logo on the helmet and the letters of Carolina across the chest every chance he gets. And guys, I get fired up when I talk about this because you don't get this a lot in college football. I have goosebumps right now. Like Kalen DeBoer doesn't care about winning in Alabama because it means a lot to the people of Alabama. Kirby Smart does know what that means about winning for the people of Georgia because he played at the University of Georgia. Coach O is a great example because it meant something more to him because he wanted to win at the state he was from. I know that Shane Beamer isn't a guy that necessarily played here or went to school here, but it matters to Shane Beamer. Like this matters to Shane Beamer. I don't feel like I'm in any remote concern that Beamer would ever use this as a stepping stool, as a stepping stool job or a stepping stone job to somewhere else, or that he would sit here and like it's just a paycheck to collect, or he's going to stop being enthusiastic about what it is. That's not what he does. That is his nature. It's not his DNA. But that logo, that word across the chest of that jersey, it means something to Shane Beamer. And you've heard coaches and other people, national pundits, try to make these low-hanging fruit jokes and pointing fingers like, oh, that's so cringe and this stuff and that stuff. And then what they had to do after they made these stupid jokes, I'm looking at you, Mark Stoops, and some of the other people in the national media, after the coaches especially had to make these stupid jokes, then you had to go line up on the field and get your ass beat by him. Excuse my language. But, like, that's what happened. And he has turned this the corner for this program. And every time I keep thinking, like, man, I hope I'm not getting ahead of myself. Man, I hope I'm not sitting here like maybe they're gonna take a giant setback. You've seen some of the quotes from other people around the country. It's like, oh, well, as soon as they get, a lot of projections and like they're predicted to do well, they fall on their face. Having one time. Like every time I think that like maybe I am getting a little bit ahead of myself and they're gonna drop back a little bit tonight and blah blah blah. They end up doing something that makes me see, not just believe, but see they are actually one step further or multiple steps further around the corner that they've turned than they were the last time we talked about it. And signing Darius Gray is yet another example of that. We're going to continue to talk about it when we come back. Before we do, I hope the audio is working. Before we do, I want to talk a little bit about our friends at FanDuel. And I tell you what, guys, it's a big time to join FanDuel. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day. I think you guys heard about me talking about this yesterday. Do it with a much higher pitched voice yesterday. But it is a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or just ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. So take a flyer on MVP race, okay? Michael Penix Jr. Crown your champion in August. Probably the Eagles again, I guess. I don't know. Or parlay your division winner dark horses. Maybe you think that one of the younger teams out west is going to challenge some of the old regime. Maybe the Chiefs are going to fall off a little bit. Maybe the Panthers are going to go over their win total. It can't be very high. Whatever you're doing, make sure you're doing two things. Betting the under on the Saints win total, and also doing it with FanDuel. Visit the FanDuel app today. Start planning your future bets now because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. We'll be right back, and I'm going to tell you a stat that shocked me. I texted Darren Usher immediately, the director of player personnel, when I saw it, and got just as fired up as I did talking about what we talked about in the first segment. So make sure you stay tuned and stick around for what we talk about next. Celebration beer. All right, moving to the next segment. I'll tell you what's weird too. I just give you guys a little bit of a peel behind the onion, a peek behind the curtain, as me and my old co-host Connor O'Gara would always say. So I was over at LSU facilities during the announcement and having to see their coaches' faces like during this happening because it was player interviews and all that kind of stuff. And so I'm over in LSU's facilities watching firsthand, like, oh, Darius Gray didn't commit. No, we hate it. And it was just a wild, kind of a weird thing. Also got to talk to Braylon Moore from Virginia Tech center, obviously playing now at LSU, but he's also the center that was an offensive lineman that played at Virginia Tech a year ago, and talked with him a little bit about just the difference between the SEC players and his thoughts on that. We'll get into that next week. He had a lot of insightful things to say. Back to what we were talking about in Darius Gray. Darius Gray, let me give you a couple quotes on the young man so we don't skip over this completely, because he is a really, really, really big-time recruit. And just this is from 247.com and or 247 Sports. 6'3", 285, number one interior offensive lineman in the country, number 16 player in the nation, according to 247. He is a consensus 5-star, right? He was number 16 player in the 247 rankings, or I guess rival. No, it's not rivals. It's 247 rankings. And then in the 247 composite rankings, he's the number 30 player. He said his relationship with Beamer was mainly the crucial piece of him committing. That began in the summer of 2022. Okay, we're in 2026. Or we're in 2025. So he's a rising senior. That means he was going to be a rising freshman, I believe, unless my math is totally off, which it very well could be. But that's a tremendous job of eyeing the talent early and being able to get to a situation where you are very involved with kids from an early age, because that's another piece of it too. Like there's a lot to be said. There's a couple of guys that they've gotten before where it's like you saw them in later, you offered them later, but the moment they step on campus, the running back they flipped from Florida State, that is a player that they saw and offered after several other teams offered him, but he got on campus and they were able to commit him. This is a situation too where it's like everyone in the country was going to be coming after Darius Gray. I don't know if they knew that when he was going into his freshman year, but being one of the first teams involved in developing that relationship early obviously paid huge dividends when it comes to this particular player. So he's the number 31 overall prospect in the Rivals industry rankings, okay, over at On3, but he is a consensus 5-star. He said, I went back and forth a lot. It was LSU one week, then South Carolina the next. I had to put emotions aside and look at the pros and cons. Once it felt right, I made the decision, and South Carolina was it. The relationships are so strong with the South Carolina coaches. They made me a priority right away and recruited me hard for so long. The people stayed the same from the beginning, and that meant a lot. We trust each other, and that meant a lot. I tell you what, I think just from a standpoint of being able to, like offensive line coach Lonnie Teasley being involved, he got several shout outs and his comfortability, I think that's a word, with the program itself and being in Columbia and all that kind of stuff. All of that was mentioned by Gray specifically. Gray's a phenomenal player. He's a phenomenal player, and I expect him to play and probably play early. And at the very least, what this does is it raises the floor of the roster talent once again. We talked about this before. Going into last year, you had 30 total blue chip players, which are players ranked 4-star or higher. Going into this season, you were at you had 30 last year, you had 39 this year. So you raised that by 30% on the dot. You also start thinking about this, like from a roster of 39 or having 39 players when you have 85 scholarships. Now it's going to 105 technically. But that is a blue chip ratio of around 40 or over 40%. And that's very big. Like we've seen this before. Bud Elliott does a great job with this, like where no team has won the national championship without a blue chip ratio of a certain amount. And that's just from the star rankings they had that your players on your roster had coming out of high school. It's only that. Doesn't even include if they've turned into great players at G5 and were 4-stars in the portal. It's just their high school ranking. And I only bring that up because you've seen what this staff can do with 4 and 3-star players out of high school, as well as 4 and 3-star players that were sometimes overlooked in the portal as well. You're just raising the floor consistently of your expectations, your roster talent, and what you can build upon with the foundation you're putting in place. Now I want to talk to the thing I want to talk about most. There's no way to not get excited about this. You could be the most pessimistic, negative person in the world. And listen, we broadcast this whole thing to YouTube. It's not like the comments are always the nicest. You guys are mainly like 95% of the time awesome. But there's people that come from other schools. There's people that are in a bad mood or whatever. But there's no way to look at this and not be overly optimistic or impressed, and or both of those things, what I'm going to tell you. South Carolina has landed 10 5-star recruits in program history. Three of those 10 are on the field or on the team right now. Dylan Stewart, Josiah Thompson, Nicholas Harbor. It is Stewart is the 6th highest player in the history of the program. Harbor's 8, Thompson's 10. Darius Gray is the 9th highest ranked player in the history of this program. 9th highest ranked recruit to commit to South Carolina in the history of this program. There is a chance that next year, if Harbor doesn't go pro, all 4 of these people will be on the same team. That means 4 of your 10 total 5-stars of all time in program history will be on the same roster, on the same team, and potentially on the field together. Obviously, they play offense and defense, but you know what I'm saying. Guys, I mean, you think about where this program was before Beamer and then where it is now. I mean, that is an unbelievable job from this. Listen, Zach Pickens, he was the fifth highest, right? Jordan Birch, I think, is the highest ranked of all time. He ended up at Oregon, right? Marcus Lattimore, he was the second highest. Demetrius Summers, that's way back in the day, class 2003. But Ricardo Hurley, a linebacker from 2002. Most of those people haven't been even in the recent, right? But 6, 8, 9, and 10 on this list have a chance to be on the field together. At the very least, you look at this and you say, oh my God. I mean, 4 of the top 10 all time have been brought in by this staff, this head coach. That's unbelievable, guys. I mean, that's unbelievable. And Thompson was a 5-star recruit. He ranks behind Gray, right? He ranks behind Gray, and he ranked ahead of Gilmore. I'm not saying he is going to be as good or have as good of a career or even an NFL career as Stephon Gilmore. What I am telling you, though, is you've only had 10 of these in program history, and Shane Beamer has brought in 4 of them. I mean, bravo, dude. Bravo, Darren Usher. Bravo, Shane. Coach Beamer, probably shouldn't say Shane. I mean, you have to win games, and it has to translate on the field. It has to translate on the field, and you have to win games. That is what matters the most. But there are certain times in programs when you look at the trajectory of where you're going and where you could be, right? And how good you could be. And you start seeing different signs of, oh man. Also, Jordan Birch was not number 1. It was obviously Jadeveon Clowney. I don't know why I said that. I forgot to scroll over 1. Jadeveon Clowney is the number 1 highest ranked of all time. That is my fault. And that's obviously something I didn't forget, but also just got way too excited in the moment here. But here's the deal. Speaking of Jadeveon Clowney, and speaking of Marcus Lattimore and Stephon Gilmore, when you talk about the classes and the recruits and the players that come in and turn programs around, I look at Alabama when Saban got there. He landed Julio Jones in his second year. Dante Hightower, Mark Ingram. Those were 4-star players. Julio was a 5-star. Julio was one of 3 5-stars they brought in that year, and the other 2 never panned out, right? But then you think about 2009 and then 2010 and the players they were able to, Trent Richardson, Drake Kirkpatrick, all these big-time players, and you see the program turn. Kirby Smart. You start seeing the 5-stars he brings in. The program turns. I'm not saying that Shane Beamer is either of those coaches, and I'm not saying that having 5-stars is going to automatically translate into winning multiple national championships like those coaches did. What I will tell you from our very own track record and our very own history of this program right here, Stephon Gilmore, class of 2009. Marcus Lattimore, class of 2010. Jadeveon Clowney, class of 2011. Those players laid the foundation and the groundwork for that 2011 to 2013 run that you went on where you won 11 straight games. Go back the year before, and it's not as good as 2011 to 2013. You didn't win 11 games. You made it to Atlanta. You knocked off the number 1 team in the country. 2010 was a pretty damn good year. So you think about all that, and those are the kind of players that you were able to bring in, and they turned the program and turned a corner. That was that you look at from a foundational standpoint, a talent standpoint. That's the time the program changed. And now I'm looking at Dylan Stewart, Nick Harbor, Darius Gray, and Josiah Thompson. And I hope Nick Harbor has a incredible season, and we see him live up to his potential that we've been wanting to see jump off the page, or we've seen jump off the page, and we hope to see translate on the field for 3 years. I hope it happens. I hope he's a first-round draft pick this year. But if it doesn't, I would love to see Nick Harbor, number 8, back in 2026 with the rest of this cast, with even more talent coming in. I'm so fired up. I'm so fired up. It is such a huge day. It is such a huge commit, and it cannot be understated. It just can't, because it's what this staff has done on such a short time. It has been remarkable. Speaking of, when we come back, we have some bad news, but it's bad news and then good news, okay? And we are going to be as positive as possible with this. I know you guys are like me for the most part and try to send as much positive vibes as possible. So we're going to do that when we come back with some bad news that we got from Travian Robertson and the defensive line coach from South Carolina. We'll give you an update on his health after a horrible car accident he was in when we come back. All right, welcome back in. We're going to close out today's show. But before we do, got to pay the bills. And I want to give a shout out to one of our newest, it's not newest. They are a sponsor that is back again, and we love them for it. It's also a sponsor that was a part of our mic mishap yesterday when I sounded like a chipmunk, and it could not have come at a worse time than when I had to read this ad read. But before we get into the next part of the show, I do want to give a shout out to our friends at Rugiet. Guys, you've probably heard about Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Ready. Rugiet Ready is the next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rugiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average in just 15 minutes. Effects can last for 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. I tell you what, if traditional options haven't worked, Rugiet might be the answer. With over 150,000 men have already made the switch. If you are struggling in that department, hey, listen, it happens over time with age or anything with stress, all the above. I don't know, but get Rugiet Ready. If you want to be, we're going to coin the phrase, strength of schedule hard, SEC strength of schedule hard, get with Rugiet and get with them today. Head to Rugiet.com/lockedoncollege and use the code LOCKEDONCollege to get 15% off today. That's RUGIET.com/lockedoncollege. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rugiet website for full safety information. It's Rugiet Ready. Get there today. All right, let's close out today's show. It is a somber note, and I wish I didn't have to talk about it, especially after that ad read, considering all of those things. But some sad news that came out from South Carolina this morning. I don't know if the news came out this morning, but obviously this happened this morning, and it's tough. It's not great. You never want to have to be talking about this, especially on a podcast that's usually pretty lighthearted. But that is the fact that defensive line coach Darius Robinson was in a pretty bad car accident, and Travian Robinson. How do I always do this? Travian Robertson. Listen, I'll just be honest. Like, I know I mess up names a lot. I've been stumbling over how to talk about this for a minute, and that's the main reason behind this, because it's such a serious thing. And again, like I said, it's just not something we talk about a lot. But defensive line coach Travian Robertson, in a pretty bad car accident last night, had to be rushed to the intensive care unit. It happened Friday morning, right? And Shane Beamer delivered a statement about it. It's awful. It's awful for so many reasons, and so few of them have anything to do with football, right? Like, yeah, it sucks that he's most likely, I would assume, not going to be available for week one. I'm sure that no one's as upset about that as he is, because of the hard work he's also put in, and just the excitement going into the season. But like I said, it sucks, and it's awful news for so many reasons. outside of football, and all of those reasons are more often than not, like, it's the most important reasons. So the statement from Shane Beamer, listen, Travian Robertson was involved in a car accident this morning. He is currently in the hospital in stable condition, which is great news. We expect to make a full recovery, which is awesome, and be back out on the field soon. Please keep the families of those involved in the accident in your prayers and respect the Robertson's family privacy during this time. I am not one that's going to come on here and talk about religion or politics or anything like that, but I am a firm believer in terms of prayers, positive vibes, positive energy, what have you, and being positive around things like this. I think it always helps. That's just me, and you don't have to agree with it. But send up some thoughts and prayers, and keep them in your thoughts, especially because and his family, especially, and the families of the ones that are affected. Again, this is not something you ever want to have to talk about on situations like this. And the good news is, as grim as I've made it sound because of just the nature of it, as bad as that part is, the good news is he is expecting to make a full recovery. And even Beamer said he's expecting him to be back on the field soon. So all of that is really good. It's just that you never want to see something like this happen to anyone, and especially just so sudden like this. So very happy and fortunate and thankful that he is in good condition, and I'm sure at whatever hospital he's at in the Columbia area, they're going to do a great job in taking care of him, getting him back to health. So just keep in your thoughts and all that kind of stuff. And then tomorrow be Saturday, guys. There's football on tomorrow. There's football on tomorrow. Very excited about it. Well, we're going to do a show tomorrow afternoon. It will not be football based necessarily about Iowa State and Kansas State playing in Ireland. Armageddon, the two teams from the Midwest going to Dublin, Ireland. I'm very excited to wake up and hear College Game Day and Big and Rich and that stupid song that will make me so excited every time I hear it. And we will watch that for sure. And then tomorrow's episode will be on the new deal with Nike that was announced earlier this week, what we know, some of the numbers and figures, and all those things that we've been trying to gather as well. It sounds pretty good. I think it's something that a lot of the fans are very excited about. But moving to Nike from Under Armour is something we've seen Auburn do as of recent, and now we're seeing South Carolina do as well, and getting a new deal for them. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode today. Do us a favor, if you haven't already, like and subscribe to the channel. We're like 150 people away from 7,000 subs on YouTube, which is really cool. I don't know if it really matters in terms of my job, but I think it's been fun to watch it grow. So I appreciate you guys as always. And until next time, go Cox.